Hi guys, I'm going to be doing a tutorial today for you. This is probably going to be the first of many digital tutorials. I'm going to be using Photoshop and Paint Tool Sci because those are two of the most common programs that are used by people. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with, okay, sorry, I'm not used to talking while recording. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a few basic mistakes that most digital artists make when they start digital art. So number one is blending. And I know that a lot of you are going to be confused right now, but one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of artists make is using a blending tool. And I'm not saying it's bad to use a blending tool, but abusing it is something that is very easy to do. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to show you both in Photoshop and in Sci so that you know what I mean. Okay, so if you were to use a blending tool, I'm going to go ahead and make this as big as I can. This is what's going to happen. It's just going to kind of blend the colors. And as you can see, to me that kind of looks murky. So what I'm going to recommend is actually manually blending, because if you do that, you're going to get a much cleaner color. You're going to have more desired results. As you can see, that actually, to me, that looks so much better. And you can kind of use a color picker to pick up your colors and blend. And so if you want it a little bit smoother, that's where the blending tool or a blur tool actually comes in handy, as for little blending. Because you don't want to abuse this, because you're going to get a blurred, nothing but a blurred blob. Which, if that's what you're looking for, that's actually great. But let me show you just another example. We're going to mix some colors. And so I'm going to use that, and let's see, I'm going to go for like a peachy color. And so say I want to mix these two colors. I'm going to go ahead and just copy that and bring it down. So we've got our two colors, and I want to blend them. So I'm going to use the blur tool first, and oops, wrong one. And so that's what we're going to get. And so if it's in moderate amounts, it can be okay, but honestly, that's not really what I'm looking for. And if you're painting skin or you're painting clothes, that's just not going to be really the desired result. So I'm going to use the color picker. I'm going to pick kind of a color in the middle, and I'm just going to blend like this. And I'm going to bring this peach color all the way over to the red, and the red all the way over to the peach color. And so if you're painting skin, you're going to get much more dynamic colors if you use this method of blending. And what you can do is you can lower the density or the opacity and create a much smoother blend. And so if you're looking for that really smooth effect, that's what you're going to want to do, is lower the opacity or the density, depending on what program you're using. And see, that looks to me that looks so much better, because it's got some texture in there, the colors aren't faded. And so that is a very common mistake that a lot of new digital artists make, and it's one that I made a lot when I first started. And so you can use the blur tool just a little bit. You want to smooth it out maybe, but unless you're going for a soft background or you actually want something blurry, try to avoid using a blending tool. So I'm going to go ahead and show you my blending method in Photoshop. And this is going to be kind of the same thing. Let's go ahead and do like a blue. And so that the opacity is on, I'm going to use a solid color instead. So I want to blend that, and let's go for like maybe a purple, or like purplish pink. And I'm going to go ahead and add another color. Okay, so for blending this kind of thing, you can use a color picker, but Photoshop, depending on the brush that you use, it can be a little bit harder to get a color in between, whereas Paint Tool Side kind of blends for you, but you can still use this method using a high opacity. And so I'm just going to blend here. And what I like to do is use the opacity. That's this little button right here, and you can turn that on or off. And by pressing it on, basically you are making it so that the harder you push, the darker your brush is going to paint. So you can paint really soft. And see, there you have it. You can blend to your heart's desire like this. Maybe even bring this color a little bit more into the blue. So I like that. So, and that's the beauty of blending. Okay, so that looks okay. I'm going to show you, let's see, what I used to blend if I do like a blur on Photoshop is it's too purple, use the smudge tool. And I set it to scattering, and let's see, the spacing like about that. And so you can kind of get a similar blur effect, but it kind of loses a lot of its value when you do that. You know, it's okay if you really, really want a smooth blend, but basically my point is that a lot of people make the mistake of abusing a blending tool. And so that's something to definitely avoid. Experiment a little bit. Try blending, you know, using a color picker and using different brushes. You can use textures. There's so much that you can do. And if you want a really soft blending and you are on Photoshop, you can use a soft round brush. That's this one right here. And that will kind of do the same thing. And that will do a really, really soft blend. This is good for a lot of skin tones. And see, there you have it. You've got a really nice soft blend without having to use the blender. Okay, so I'm going to get on to my next point, and that is that using references is okay. People really don't realize that it is okay to use references when you are drawing. So I made that mistake a lot. When I first started digital art, I thought that it was not okay to, you know, to look at something while I drew. And, you know, so I would try to come up with these, you know, crazy, you know, oh yeah, I'm gonna, you know, make someone posing, you know, absolutely amazing. And over time, some artists do get kind of a natural knack for doing that kind of thing. But personally, some of my best artworks have been when using a reference, and it is okay to use reference. You just have to realize that. And so I'm going to actually show you some of my artwork that I did use a reference on. And so let me pull that up. Sorry, I have a million things on my desktop. Artwork timeline. Okay, so I'm going to show you really quick. This has actually become one of my new favorites. And I really wasn't very good at using backgrounds. So I looked at some references. I don't have them anymore. I tried to clean up my computer and lost them. But I used a reference, actually I used several references for the background. And I used a reference for my character, Asuna, who's sitting right here. And because it's hard to draw a sitting pose, and I had never really drawn that pose before. And so I looked up on Google and I found some references of people, you know, sitting while leaning against something. And I found some references of some forests and some really naughty tree trunks and stuff. And this is what I came up with. And you just have to know that it's okay to look at references, look at other people's art, find ideas, it's perfectly okay. So another one that I used, references for was this one. This was another one. I had never ever drawn anyone holding a bow like that, and that was a really dynamic pose for me. And so, does it make me any less of an artist to use a reference? I don't think so, not anymore. At one point I did think that, but it's not true. So, it's one thing to copy someone's artwork, it's another to look and use a reference. So, alright, let me look at my notes here really quick. Okay, so here's something that I really wish that somebody told me when I first started digital art. This is something I had to figure out on my own, and it took me a good long time to learn. So some of you who are well versed in Photoshop or Paint Tool Sci might already know this. You probably will, but I'm going to tell you anyway because I'm sure that there are some new artists who could really use this. So that is the clipping mask and locking layers. And for the longest time, I couldn't figure out how somebody could draw something. Let's see, I'm just going to start something new here. I'm going to draw a heart for you guys. And that looks terrible, sorry. I had no idea how somebody kept, what they're drawing in the lines. It really confused the heck out of me. And after a while, I did some research and figured it out, and it was like, oh, okay, I wish I'd known this. But basically, this is clipping masks and locking layers. So locking a layer is pretty simple. On Paint Tool Sci, it's going to be this button right here, Preserve Opacity. So I'm going to preserve that, and what that does is that basically keeps anything that I draw on that layer in the lines. So I can draw outside the lines and it will not do anything. So I can draw to my heart's content. And so if I've got a base, or I'm drawing somebody's hair or something, and I want to keep what I'm drawing in the lines, I already like what I've drawn, I don't want to change the shape, then that's what we can do. And clipping mask is basically the same exact thing, except it's starting it on a new layer. So let me show you really quick. So I'm going to start a new layer, and on Paint Tool Sci it's called a clipping group. So I'm going to go ahead and clip it, and basically what that does is that clips it to the layer that's underneath it. So if I start a new layer and then another one and I clip that, it's not going to clip it to the bottom one here. It's going to clip it to the one that's directly underneath it. So unless this is in the clipping group, it's not going to clip to this one. Okay, so this layer right here, go ahead and delete those. This layer right here is clipped to this one. So it's basically the same thing as locking a layer. I can draw on top of it without going outside the lines, except here is the beauty of it. It's on a new layer. So if I'm drawing and, I go, oh, I don't like that. I want to start over, but I don't want to delete, what I've already done. You're painting, you've got a whole bunch of stuff, it just looks awful. It's on a whole different layer, but you still stay in the lines. So those, to me, are two really, really important things that every beginning digital artist should know. So clipping mask and preserve opacity. And so basically that's what it's going to be called on Paint Tool Sci's clipping group and preserve opacity. I'll show you on Photoshop really quick, give another quick little demonstration. So I'm going to go ahead and just draw another heart. And I tend to use this big round brush when I draw on Photoshop. And it's not perfect, but who cares? So locking the layer is this right here. This little thing. So you click on that, and that's going to lock the layer for you. And it does basically the same exact thing I just showed you. It will keep your drawing inside the lines. And clipping mask is a little bit harder to get to. Just right click on it and create clipping mask. and that will allow me to draw on top with a new layer, and it will stay inside the lines. So I hope that that is really helpful for you, and if you already know about this, I'm sorry that you had to listen to my long lecture, but I hope it helps someone at least. So, okay, next thing. I really wish that somebody had told me when I started digital art. So, number 4, values are important. So, when I first started drawing, I didn't realize that you don't want, flat colors. You can't just, if you're drawing, in a unique style, you want flat colors. For some people, that's just going to be their style. But for others, maybe not so much. If you're trying to draw, more realistic, you're going to want some more values. And even in like a lot of anime style, you're going to want good contrast and good values in order to create, a better drawing. So this, so far, I'm just going to kind of show you a little bit. And I'm just kind of painting a rough face. This isn't actually my usual style of painting, but I'm just going to do that. And so what I'm going to show you is using grayscale. And I'm going to go over here to channels, and I'm going to click this right here and take out the color. And basically, it's going to show it in black and white. And another way that you can do that is going up to image, adjustments, and hue and saturation, and taking out the saturation. It's going to show you a grayscale picture. And so basically when you're drawing, you want to make sure to check your values, because if you're painting a lot of, say, you're just kind of painting some stuff, and you're like, okay, I'm going to switch to this color, and you're going to switch to this color, and I don't know, I don't know what I'm painting. I'm painting something really random, but that, the color difference looks okay. You don't really notice it, but let me show you in just a second. When I go up here, I'm going to take out the saturation, and suddenly that doesn't look so good because it almost all looks the same. There are subtle differences, but you're going to want some more contrast. So when you're picking colors, try to have some highlights, have some dark tones. They don't have to be too dark. You really want to make sure that stuff stands out, and so you need to have your highlights, you need to have your shadows. Even in basic, anime style, something like that, you're going to want to have a little bit of values in there. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the difference. Now see, that stands out a little bit more. You can see the highlights, you can see, where I have darker colors. And so when you've got a full scale image, like, let me see, like this, I'm back to paint tool side here. No, not that. I'm going to take out the saturation here. Maybe. Oh, I'm on another layer, sorry. So when I take that out, it still looks like an image. At least, I hope it does. You can still see kind of the highlights. It still has value, basically. And that's the whole purpose of it, is you want to have some value in your drawing. You want your grayscale drawing to look just as good as your color drawing. And so basically, that is the purpose. You should be able to have a grayscale drawing that you can just add color to, and it'll still look good. So it's important to check your values. Make sure that it really stands out. You can do that partway through your drawing and say, oh, you know what? This definitely needs some more contrast. So it's a good thing to check. Okie dokie. So moving on to, I think, number 5. So this is something that's kind of up for debate. It's okay to study other artists. There are many artists that I admire, many artists that if you want to be an artist also you will come to admire. But here's the problem, is that when you're starting out, it's easy to try to copy someone's style, and that's definitely not something that you should do. And it's not even that you should, not try to copy someone's style because it would be like copying them. It's that no artist is perfect. Well, okay, I'm sure that there are some artists that are pretty close, but every artist is going to have their faults. And so you can have an artist that you totally admire, but you don't really see that they, draw noses funny, or that, maybe when you try to do their style, it just doesn't really work for you. And so it is okay to study other artists. You might say, oh, you know what, that technique is absolutely brilliant. I love how they draw that, and I want to draw like that too. But trying to completely copy their way, the way that they draw, is never ever going to get you anywhere, because it's just not. You can't copy someone else's style because it's not your style. And that actually leads me into number 6, is find your own style. One of the biggest mistakes that I made when I started out digital art is that I thought that how other people would do their art was the way that I was supposed to do it too. I really didn't understand the fact that every single artist has their own method, and some people have very similar methods, but you have to find your own style. And sometimes it takes a while to find, but I think when I realized that I didn't want to be like other artists and that I just wanted to be like myself but better, is when I really actually started improving. And so that's something that you really need to work on. It's kind of, you have to do kind of some soul searching. And it's okay to experiment with different styles. Personally, the method that I'm using right now is kind of, I go from grayscale to color, and I kind of do a rough painting, and then it's kind of a complicated method, and if you've seen some of my drawing videos, you will understand maybe, but even that method I am starting to question. I don't use it all of the time. I've been kind of experimenting with rough painting lately, but you need to find your own style, and so it's okay to look up tutorials, look up different methods, but don't ever let anyone tell you, okay, this is how I do it and that's how you should do it too, because that is not art. That's basically it. This is art, and art is you. So you need to find your own style, and you need to better yourself basically through your own art, your own ways. You need to find what works for you, because no one is the same. And so my painting method, anyway guys, I really hope that some of this helped. I will hopefully be doing a part 2. I have some other notes that I need to go over and see which ones I'm going to include in my next video. If you have any suggestions, please comment them below. I would love to hear them. You can also support me on Patreon. It is a huge help to me. You have no idea. Even $1 a month can help so tremendously, because right now I am a struggling artist. I am trying to get on my feet, and I would really appreciate your support. So you can find that in the link below. I will be hopefully doing more tutorials if this takes off. So yeah, so leave comments below for suggestions and what your thoughts are and what you think. This is Anadia-chan, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.